Hello, it's Belinda Colleen, and I'm here to talk to you about reselling. And specifically with 2026 on the horizon, it's time to sort of assess our goals for the future and have a reality check, if you will. And that's what I've been doing in the last couple of days. And so I'd like to share some of my thoughts with you and some of the research that I've done. Um, As far as income potential, it was interesting to me. People bandy about, numbers. Oh, six figures. I'm going to make six figures. That's my goal. People throw these numbers around, you know, pretty carelessly a lot of times. And, six figures seems to be the end all be all number that people like to hang on to. But I guess it's important to remember that a six-figure salary is not the same as six figures as a business owner in some good and some bad ways. I mean, whereas if you're a salaried employee, you get benefits, which could be 15, 20, 25%, even 30% more than your income. You don't get the write-offs that you get as a business owner. So it's a lot to take in, and I would definitely talk to a tax professional about this because it can make a big difference in your life. Indeed, who I thought would have no skin in the game and might give a really accurate number for this, because typically people that are reselling aren't employees, although they can be. But Indeed reports the average income for a full-time reseller is $71,545. So that was in 2025. So that's I think it was a little bit higher than I thought it might be, but I don't know. And I don't know where they get their numbers, so I'm not guaranteeing them. But because they seem like a good, trustworthy third party that, like I said, has no skin in the game, I thought those were probably pretty good numbers because, I mean, their job, Indeed, I don't know if you know this, they place people in jobs. They're sort of a job search site. So as independent sellers, resellers aren't typically in that world, and they don't have a lot to gain from us, I don't think, although I know a lot of people get big enough where they hire people, but even so, I felt that they were a trustworthy site. Now, the AI overview, which of course we can't ignore AI these days, says that full-time resellers average, and this is probably a better number or better range, from 50 to 80,000 a year. So that's full-time. Now, the thing we don't know is what full-time means, and anybody that's worked for any length of time knows that that can be all over the map depending on, my phone's in the background. I hope you can't hear it, but you probably can. I forgot to turn it off, something I always forget to do. But as I was thinking about this, I thought, what categories should I be selling, in order to generate the kind of income I want to? And now I'm a part-time seller, so that really shifts things and changes things a little bit. I think as a part-time seller, depending on how many hours you're putting in, like if we're assuming that full-time sellers are working at least 40 hours a week, and I actually suspect it's much more than that, then I don't know what part-time would mean. I mean, for me, I guess it just means whatever it means to you. For instance, for me, I'm thinking 20, 25 hours a week, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on what's going on in my life. And, it's funny, little things creep in, you think, okay, I spent an hour listing, I spent 2 hours sourcing, and then there's all these little dribbles of time, like answering questions, processing inventory, which you think, oh, I'm just throwing those in the wash. I'm not going to count that time. It does all add up. If nothing else, it really takes up space in your mind a lot of times. Even if you're not physically involved every second, you're thinking about it. You're checking your your phone to see if you have questions, to see if you have sales. Because my cha-ching doesn't always come through, and I can't figure out why. It used to always come through, so I've got to look at my notifications on that because I love that sound, and it's kind of like a nice little, I don't know, perk is to hear that cha-ching. It's very exciting. But anyway, I think for me, my goal is about 3,000 to 4,000 a month part-time, and I would be very happy with that. And if I can compare it to the full-time income values, that seems like it should be doable. I don't know. I'll let you know about that. Tell me what you think. I'd love to hear in your comments because I don't know that many people in reselling. I know a few people, but I'm always curious to find out what people think. I mean, what do you think is a realistic income for the average reseller, not the top star and not the person that's not trying, for part-time, for 20 hours a week? And what do you think is a realistic income expectation for a full-timer, say 40 to 50 hours a week? Give me a comment. I'd love to hear what you have to say. So I was doing some research, and something I always want to know is, what are people selling? What are the best things to sell on eBay? And I've heard a lot of opinions, and I've gone down some rabbit holes that I shouldn't have based on that. And part of it was my fault for not being smart about what I'm really good at. I think, I mentioned it in an earlier video that I tried electronics, and that was obviously not the right path for me, but there are a lot of people doing very well in it. So I thought we could go through some of the best things to sell on eBay. Okay. Clothing, of course, is the most popular, and I know the most about that because that's what I mainly sell on eBay. And there's good and there's bad. I mean, for someone like me that doesn't have much space, selling clothes makes sense. I'm comfortable with it, and I can store a lot of clothes. So, I've got like about 1,200 listings. I think I'm trying to pare it down to 1,000. I'd like to have 1,000 with a 90-day sell-through rate, 50 to 75%, so that I could just churn it quickly. That would be perfect for me. And that way I wouldn't be flowing over in my house and starting to feel stressed about that. Excuse me. The bad news about selling clothes, and you probably already know it, is you do get some returns because of fit. Some things just don't fit, and that's just all there is to it. And I don't care. You can take measurements and everything else, and that still fits kind of a little bit hard. It's a hard thing to work out sometimes, even with measurements. Because believe it or not, I think, and this was one of my reasons I was a little reluctant in the beginning when I started with clothes to do measurements, because I thought, well, everybody may take measurements a little bit differently. And so anyway, but now I have started taking measurements, and I just show the measurements. And that way it's like, okay, look, I take a picture of it. And the best thing about clothes is everybody needs them and they all wear out. So in a year where people might not buy very many things, they might not buy collectibles, they might not buy home decor. If if they've been around for a while, they've got home decor. And when times get tough or the economy's slow or whatever you want to say, and I think right now people are a little bit worried about the economy, when your shoes wear out, you're going to buy new shoes. When you have a special event to go to, and I'm talking about women more than men, but even men, you're going to buy something for it. So clothes are the kind of thing that people will buy almost any time if they have any disposable income. So I feel like they're a necessity. And as long as you can give them a great deal, give your customer a great deal, I think clothes are a safe bet in any economy. And that's my personal opinion. Plus, I enjoy selling clothes. I think you need to sell something you enjoy, because if you don't, you're going to be miserable, and what's the point, right? designer items and brands are great, but again, depending on the economy, you might want to not load up your entire store with that type of thing, maybe part of your store, and then have some basics that people need and want and they'll buy. Now, jewelry is another top item, another top category on eBay. And I'm talking more about eBay because that's where I sell. I have sold a little bit of jewelry. I find I do like jewelry, and and I've been buying jewelry my whole life, but it's it's a very involved field. I feel like it's a little harder to look up than clothes because you can't always see the markings on the jewelry very well, and there may not always be markings. And then there's a lot of costume jewelry. I mean, if you're selling high-end jewelry, I guess my concern with selling that is challenges to whether it's authentic. I think anytime you sell higher end things, you run a higher risk of much more scrutiny, and the sale is not as carefree. More chance of returns and that type of thing, and challenging the authenticity of it. Whereas with costume jewelry, and when I say costume jewelry, I mean, a lot of costume jewelry sells for $40, $50, $60. It doesn't mean it's like dirt cheap, and there is a big demand for it, and it's trendy. It's very, like what's in style today. And I think there's a real market for that. And in fact, I have sold a few nicer pieces of jewelry that were given to me to sell, but honestly, I don't go out and buy that. That's just me, though. I mean, if you know jewelry and you're confident in that area, I think there's a ton of money to be made. And think about the storage. Oh my goodness. You could have one of those large jewelry boxes or something, some kind of container where you could have 1,000 pieces of jewelry that you tuck away somewhere in your closet or whatever. I mean, or in your, just a corner of your bedroom, whatever you want to do. So that jewelry is really exciting from a lot of standpoints. And if I knew more about jewelry, I would lean in on it. And in fact, that's an area I keep toying with. Maybe I should lean into it a little bit more, just because storage is an issue for me. And I love jewelry. So I keep thinking that would be a practical way for me to go. Now, home goods and decor, or decor. It's late in the day. I'm tired already. I mean, that definitely, I think that is an area that I enjoy very much, maybe more than clothes. But storage is the reason I don't go all in on that. And I mean, if I really wanted to, I could rent space or whatever. I know that. But between the storage and the shipping, I just buy a few pieces that seem safe to me, even though I really love it. I love the home decor area in the category myself. And you can always go for like smaller pictures, vases, picture frames, things like that, holiday decorating items, that kind of thing. It's funny. I don't know what it is. This is my third Christmas in the business. The first Christmas I had only been selling for like a month, so I wasn't really ready. But for some reason, for me, the Christmas item that I sell the most are the stocking holders, the decorative ones that are kind of interesting and cool looking. I always buy them, and I think I'm going to use these, but I'm going to list them just in case. And I've learned, for whatever reason, those things sell, and they sell fast, even at a decent price. So, and if they're unique, especially. So, so I always go out and I buy some, and I think, okay, and I put them in my house, and I like them, and then they sell. And I always think, so this is the third year that's happened to me. So it's like, okay, throughout the year now, I'm going to buy a lot of stocking hangers, because those things seem to go like hotcakes. And I find that very amusing because I have other items that are Christmas decorations. Not too many, though. I don't go all in like some people do because I just don't have a lot of space to store things. But those work. They work for me. I don't know if they'll work for you, but when I say unique, I like unique things when it comes to Christmas, and for some reason those always sell. Uh, anyway, candles, throw pillows, decorative bowls. Those are some other things. Mirrors. Now, mirrors I'm a little bit scared of. I like mirrors, and when I was in my antique booth a couple years ago now, I sold a lot of gold mirrors, the big gold mirrors, kind of like the one that I have back there. And they sell well. But I don't want to ship a mirror. That just sounds like you're asking for trouble to me. Because, if you want to get $200 or $300 for them, which is what they really are worth, it just sounds like trouble. So I have not gone into that. Now, you may be braver than I am, and a lot of it's just figuring out the best way to ship it, really. But it's also, you're not going to get them for so cheap. You're probably going to have to pay, I think, for a decent mirror that you would resell that's large, you're going to have to pay probably $50, $80 for it. Maybe less. I don't know. But anyway, I think small wall art is good, like something like this size, almost like an 8x10 type situation, because you can pack that really carefully and protect it. But people still love unique art. Now, this is not a famous piece here. I just really like it. My mother gave it to me. I love it. But if you're getting art that's signed or original, which is what people love to buy, it's harder to find that in the smaller art. But if you can find it and just get an idea for the artist, you can make some decent money on that, because in places like Goodwill and thrift stores and estate sales, you can usually pick that stuff up for, I don't know, you could pick something that size up maybe for $15, maybe 20, sell it for 100 or 120. So, I mean, I think there's a real possibility there for you to do something with art. And if you enjoy it, it's a great way to go. Plus, the nice thing about it is you don't have the bidding wars like you do in clothes, where someone's comparing this J. Crew sweater to that J. Crew sweater. All that competition tends to drive the price down. But with something unique like artwork, if somebody sees it and they connect with it and they like it, you are in a great position because you could probably ask more for it. So that's something good to think about. Now, video games are another major category that eBay sells a lot of. I don't even know what to say about video games, except that I don't know anything about them and I have no interest in them. Sorry to all those people out there that love that stuff. It's just never been my thing. But I know there's a huge market for it, and people that are into it. So if you like that, you should put your toe in the water, because I think so much about looking forward to 2026 is about deciding how to shift your business, maybe change your business model a little bit to adjust to the times, the economy, the sentiment out there with buyers, and maybe expand your business a little bit to some other areas that you haven't thought about that might be good for you. Now, books. I used to sell books on Amazon. Amazon was the first company I ever sold anything with, and I'm a writer, and I love books. And so I thought that would be perfect for me. It's backbreaking, though. That's the only problem. If you buy 50 books, you're going to be walking to the car with 10 books 5 times, and it's hard on you, unless you're like 25 years old and you're just in great shape. I mean, it was hard physically, but I enjoyed it a lot. I did. And even the sourcing was hard. Just going, you couldn't just, like with clothes, I can kind of go through and feel the material and look, and I can spot things and pull them out of a big section. But with books, it's not as easy to see it quickly. So you have to go through a lot of books to find the gems. But if you're a book lover and you've got the back for it, or you've got an assistant with the back for it, and you don't mind carrying heavy things around, it's a great category. And you might want to open up, if you were going to sell books, you might want to consider Amazon and eBay. That's probably what I would do if I were. And occasionally I'll see a book and I'll buy it, but I usually end up keeping it because I love books. But in the book area, textbooks, you can make some good money on, good markup on textbooks. And of course, that's very seasonal, depending on when when the semester starts for most of the colleges around you. Classics are always good. And if you're lucky and, the sun is shining on you and the stars are aligned, you can find first editions. It's not a lot, but some, and they do real well. You can make some really good money with first editions. Now, fan-based merchandise is an interesting category, and I have sold a lot of sports stuff and the occasional rock and roll kind of concert t-shirt. But I think you have to really know where to get that, to get that stuff. I see some of it in Goodwill, and I see a lot of sports, jerseys and t-shirts and hoodies, that kind of thing in thrift stores. But I know that there's a huge market in that. I think you have to be a true fan and maybe immerse yourself into that market to really find the best items. And for me, I always have to look it up, unless it's just something real generic. Like, I live in Georgia, so I know that University of Georgia and Georgia Tech, hoodies and t-shirts always do well. Okay, as long as I can get it cheap enough, which isn't always easy. And there is a little bit of a saturation going on because there's so much of that stuff out there in this area anyway. Now, sporting goods. Oh my goodness. I was athletic when I was growing up. I played a lot of softball. I played a lot of tennis. I played basketball in high school. I even played softball in college. But so I like sports, and I know how people can go broke trying to buy the best sports gear. And I think that's a big marketplace. You could probably focus just on sports and make a very good living, So something you might want to think about if you enjoy that world and you feel knowledgeable in it. I mean, I have to say I made quite a bit of money on golf clubs before I decided they were too much trouble. But I still buy I buy baseball mitts, softball mitts, gloves. I'll buy golf paraphernalia, but I'm not buying the clubs just because, like I said, they're too hard to ship. But I think there's a real market there. And I've even thought about personally, one of my goals for 2026 is to lean into golf attire and tennis attire and pickleball attire, because people really want to look good when they play these sports. It's that kind of sport. So I enjoy I like those kind of clothes. So I think I'm going to lean into that a little bit myself. Now there's always shoes. Shoes are great because you usually get shoes tend to cost more and you can ask for a higher price. So if you want to immediately jump your average price up, a lot of times you can do better with shoes sometimes than you can with just clothes. I'm not talking about coats. I'm just talking about women's tops, men's shirts, and slacks and skirts, dresses. Shoes you can usually do a little better with as long as you're picking out the right kind of shoes. The only thing I would say about shoes is of all the clothes and everything that I sell that people wear, I have a higher return rate on shoes. And so that's something to think about. In fact, I've decided I was going all in on shoes, and I still sell a lot of shoes, but I'm cutting back on shoes for 2026. One thing, they take up a lot of space. Two, I end up having to clean them, spend more time on them. And three, the returns. So I'm thinking I need to be careful with the shoes. And a couple of the shoes people wanted a partial refund. They'd say, oh, it got messed up or whatever. I feel like there's some shenanigans going on in shoes that I don't feel like are going on in some of the other categories, at least in my experience. Well, I don't have too much else to say. All I'll say is that I think at the end of every year, we all take stock and we think, okay, what's worked for me? And I encourage everyone to do what I've been doing already, but I'm going to do even more so after the end of the year, which is pretty close now, is look at your numbers and do your research and analyze them and decide what's working for me. You know, what's working for me with space, what's working for me with return on my investment, what's easy to find. And if it's not easy to find, but it still makes a lot of money and I enjoy it, I need to find better ways to find, larger amounts of that. So those are the kinds of things that I'm doing at the year end here. And I feel encouraged. I had a pretty good jump from last year, which makes sense because this is like my second full year in the business. So I should have had a big jump. Plus I moved in the middle of my first year, which really was very disruptive and crazy. So I wish you the best. I hope you're having a great holiday and that I'll see you again sometime. And if you would, I would appreciate you to like this. If you enjoy the material and you think there's anything in there that you can use, happy holidays and happy new year. Bye-bye.